This is Mayor Sylvester Turner, and this is the timeline of progress. Hey, look, I was a typical kid growing up on the north side in Acres Home, in the hood, you know. My dad died early of cancer when I was 13, so it was my mom who literally reared 9 kids, by herself. She was a maid, worked at the Old Rice Hotel downtown. She would get us ready for school, catch that bus, and then she would catch another bus, and she would head to work, going to school every day, getting back, playing outside, hanging out in the street, so to speak, and then getting back in, and she made sure that we did our homework, and that routine kept going. And for my dad, before he died, he would load us up on the back of his pickup truck, and we would go across town, cutting people's grass, yards. That's how we made a little bit of money. And then sometimes during the summer, he would take us back to Chapel Hill, Brenham, to the country. And he had a little farm, we would work with him on that. I think it was a typical background for kids like myself. Trying to think back on that particular moment when you said, okay, it's time to do more, play a more active role. What stands out vividly for myself in my mind, my mom would take my brother. My brother had some, how would you describe it, intellectual disabilities, issues. And she would get on the bus, I would ride with her, sometime, catch 2 buses to go to Bentop Hospital. And we would sit in that emergency room, for example, it seemed like for eternity. And then they would say to my mom, because we didn't have any private health insurance, they would prescribe a prescription and say, look, if he gets worse, bring him back. If he creates any problems for anybody, a danger, bring him back. But in the meantime, we really don't have any hospital beds, for you. And we would get back on those 2 buses and head back home. And I said when I was, on that bus, I said, it's hell to be poor, when you don't have the type of health insurance. And I was in high school at that moment, and I said, if given an opportunity, I would do whatever I could to kind of change things. And later on, that's what prompted me, for example, to run for the Texas legislature, because discovered that they provided funding for mental health services. As I reflect back, let's say since being mayor since January 2016, there are a lot of things that stick out, big moments, so to speak. Let me focus on 2. One, of course, was during Hurricane Harvey, when water was everywhere, working every day, all night, all day, to kind of keep people together, informing, keeping people in the loop, communicating to them, letting them know what the city was doing and where things were. I'll remember those days for the rest of my life. The other special moment for me, for example, when I was at a Boys to Men luncheon, and I was scheduled, to be the keynote speaker. I got there late, and I sat on the side of the room, the banquet hall, and of course I walked in with my mayor's detail, and all these young guys, primarily black kids, kind of turned around to see who walked in this banquet hall. And I don't know what possessed this 10-year-old black kid who got up out of his seat. He was sitting kind of in the middle. He walked all the way around and stood, right in front of me. And I looked at him and said, "What's up?" And he said, "You're mayor?" I said, "Yeah, I'm mayor." I said, "What's up, man?" And he said, "I just, came over to speak to you." And then they were introducing me. I got up and said, "Hey, fella, I got to go speak." And I got up and walked towards the front of the room. And I don't know what possessed this kid. He started walking right with me. I walked up on the stage. He walked up on the stage. I spoke for 20 minutes. That black kid, 10-year-old, never left my side. stayed right there the entire time. I will always remember that moment, and it serves as a reminder that you never know who's watching. You never know whose lives you may be touching. But for that African American 10-year-old young boy, that will always stick in my mind. Serves as a reminder that we're in this business not just for yourself, but to help to inspire and motivate someone else. Oh man, for me, the quick response would be the election and re-election of Barack Hussein Obama. I mean, that was a huge moment. That was a game changer. Okay, when you're breaking that ceiling, it lets you know voting matters, elections matter, and that you can accomplish things that years ago seemed unimaginable, but you're only limited by your own actions. So that was, for me, that was a pivotal moment. It was the first, for example, but shouldn't be the last. So the question is, okay, who will be next? And then who will be next? And then who will be next? And the lesson is, you can't wait on somebody to tell you it's your turn, okay? You can't wait to see the message in the sky saying it's your turn. You have to go and get it. And if you do it, others will follow. Well, that person would be my dad. My dad didn't graduate from high school. I don't say that as a negative, okay? And even though he died when I was 13, I still remember him very vividly. He was the provider. My dad worked very, very hard. He worked at Continental Emsco for 31 years, and he was and got that truck and cut people's yards on the weekends, took his boys with him. And even though he didn't have private health insurance, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, but he didn't tell his kids that he had it. And my mom, told us after the fact, he elected to work, as he put it, until the Lord called him home. So it was my dad with leukemia, kept working. We saw him falling, didn't know why. I thought, old man, getting old, slipping and falling. But he would always pull himself back up. And then when you would go to him to assist when he was slip and fall, for example, either cutting people's yards or in the house, he would always say, I'll be all right. I'll pull myself back up. So for me, my dad taught me in living and dying that when you get knocked down, you got to learn how to pull yourself right back up. So he'll always be that silent mentor for me. Look, hear me out, and let me say this. Your vote is your voice, okay? And it's almost like the tube on your volume, either on your phone or your remote control. If you don't vote, the volume is very, very low. In fact, people don't hear you. The more you vote, your volume increases. Okay? Elections matter. Elections have consequences. And if you don't participate in the process, then all of what people have done, the sweat and the tears and their efforts, their labors, from the Sojourner Truths to the Harriet Tubmans, to the Fannie Lou Hamers, all of their efforts in large part will have been in vain. People paid a price. People paid a price. And I know people, when people look at things, sometimes they see things remaining as they are, or sometimes they say people gonna do what they gonna do anyway. Well, if that's the attitude we take, then we may as well all go sit down and just say all is lost. But the reality is, the vote is the one thing that equalizes everybody. Whether you are affluent or whether you are poor, whether you live in a wealthy neighborhood or live in a neighborhood in the hood like myself, that vote is, everybody is equal. The only thing that makes it unequal is that when the person votes and you don't, then you've given that person the power and a greater say over your own life. Because the elections don't stop because you don't participate. But you're gonna play, you're gonna respond to the piper that played the tune. So, you know, I tell people all the time, you decide, okay? But your vote is your voice. You want to be heard, vote. If you don't want to be heard, then that's your choice. But choices have consequences. This is Mayor Sylvester Turner, and this was the Timeline of Progress.